Thank you all so much. Thank you for coming, and thank you, it's nice for having me. My name is Tami Aftab. I'm a British Pakistani photographer born and raised in London. I'm going to be talking mostly about this one piece of ongoing work with my dad, but to briefly introduce my wider practice, I work within fashion and portraiture, both editorially and commercially. Some of my clients include Vogue, GQ, Stella McCartney, Nike, Rafa, BMW, and Atmos. My work is often discussing themes of family, intimacy, memory, and identity. But the project I want to share with you today is my ongoing collaboration with my dad, Tony. So our project discusses his relationship with his illness, specifically his short-term memory loss. We've been making work together since 2018, starting as this project titled The Dogs in the Car. My dad has an illness called hydrocephalus, which is a buildup of fluid in the brain. This causes migraines, disorientation, and blackouts. So my dad grew up in Pakistan without any free healthcare and only got diagnosed with hydrocephalus when he moved to the UK at 19 years old. Once Dad was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, he started to get surgeries every few months to get that fluid manually drained until around 30 years ago when a new surgery was discovered. This surgery put a shunt in Dad's brain, allowing the fluid to drain itself. But sadly, an accident happened in the operation where they knocked and damaged his short-term memory. Therefore, since I was born, my dad has been living with short-term memory loss as a result. Since living with short-term memory loss, Dad has created coping mechanisms such as the use of post-it notes, which inspired the title, The Dogs in the Car. These are left all around the family house. They're on the fridge, oven, the front door, wallet, like on his hands, everywhere. These post-it notes are usually small, penciled notes that are only seen inside the home and end up in the bin most of the time. And I really wanted to turn these messages on their head and put them in public spaces in a loud, bold text. When putting up this image, you can see the dogs in the car. I was standing on my dad's shoulders, and I could see strangers expecting to read happy birthday or congratulations. So when they read the dogs in the car, there was a lot of confusion on their faces, but I actually found that to be a really good reflection of the confusion in my dad's day-to-day life. These notes set the tone of the images that we wanted to make, something which doesn't fit into your traditional narrative of illness, but instead discusses this idea of comedic relief and using humor as a way of coping. And this was a fine line between this idea of mockery and humor, and this is where collaboration was key. A lot of the images are inspired by nuances of our day-to-day life. So this image here is a memory of how Dad put on a load of shaving foam on his face and forgot to shave and went to Tesco's with a beard of foam. Or wearing a pile of hats because Dad has sensitive scar tissue on his head and he'll often buy hats. He also likes the charity shop a lot. And he'd come home with a new hat and I'd have to remind him he already has 20 of the same, which he'd always deny. But yeah, he has many of the same hat, as you can see here. Since The Dogs in the Car, this ongoing collaboration with my dad has taken different forms. This project was for Family Portrait magazine and focused on Dad's long-term memory and his memories of childhood in Lahore, such as bucket baths, which we have a bath and a shower, but he will still use a bucket as a form of comfort to wash himself. Holding hands with his best friend and family down the street, piling the whole family onto motorcycles, and making and flying kites. This project was an editorial, so it meant we shot everything in one day, which was a very different way of working for us. But Dad very much enjoyed being dressed up by a stylist and also being on the cover of a magazine. We've also done commissions together, such as this project for It's Nice That, discussing if creativity can be a catalyst for change. And since Dad has ventured on a journey without me in modeling, he's modeled for Primark, Mr. Porter, Stone Island, Expedia, Thomas Pink, and this campaign with Johnny Walker, Simone Ashley, and Diet Parata, if you can see his little scarred head. But as someone who came... As someone who came from a world so far from this and whose day-to-day job is still working part-time in a shop, it's amazing to see him flourish into this newfound love in front of the camera. So if there are any casting directors in the room, he's available and willing. So alongside our photography journey, we've also been working together on my dad's journey as a chef. In 2018, at the same time we started taking images together, we also started doing kitchen takeovers, pop-ups and markets in South London as a family under the name of Safra's Kitchen, which is named after his mother. So I'm excited to share that this year we have released our debut book, kindly supported by We Present and designed by Tom Booth-Woodger. The Rice is on the Hob is a photo book meets cookbook collaboration and feels like a perfect way to mark the 5 years of taking images and making food together. For the project, Dad and I went on a trip to his hometown of Lahore in the Punjabi province of Pakistan. This was my first time in the city since I was 3 years old and my first time in Pakistan as an adult. Similarly to our project with Family Portrait Magazine, we wanted to focus on Dad's memories of childhood, but this time specifically focusing on his relationship with food and memory. As you can see, we wanted the images to be a continuation of the dogs in the car. So we revisited this idea of the post-it note, but instead of being hung around the suburbia of southwest London, it was hung in spots around my dad's family home in Lahore. A lot of the images were taken in and around Dad's family home. The town that he grew up in, the streets are full of music and markets and kids playing and noise and a lot of senses. And one day we spent an afternoon in the alley behind my dad's childhood home to take a series of portraits of strangers. I hung up a black piece of fabric on a fence, set up my tripod. I don't speak Urdu, so I had to rely on my dad and my cousin Marek to ask passerbys if I could take their portrait. But to my surprise, almost no one was a stranger because people would come up and realize it was my dad and hadn't seen him in many years. And this would be the family who he bought kitchen equipment from, the man who fixed his watches, his old doctor, a kid who he'd play cricket with on the street who's grown up, who were all offering us food and chai and were really keen to be part of the images. And for each portrait, we asked them what their favorite dish is and who cooks it for them. Every single person said a dish cooked by their parents, even someone who was 80 years old. And the large majority was mum's biryani. When living in Pakistan, my dad had no problems with his memory and hadn't yet been diagnosed with hydrocephalus. So it was very special to explore areas and moments from his long-term memory, a time before his illness, a time before he was a dad, a time before moving to London. We also continued to make performative portraits, but this time they felt more collaborative than ever, as I was having to take Dad's lead on his memories and where to shoot. I think it's evident from these images that you're seeing how much Dad's confidence has grown in front of the camera too. This image depicts kitchen timers that are all over our family home, but they are truthfully now Amazon Alexas. But these are used as reminders in case he's gone upstairs having forgotten that the rice is on the hob or that something's in the oven. Despite now Dad being a great chef, when he came to England, my mum said that he could only fry an egg. And this is because growing up in Pakistan, traditionally the women cook, so he was never allowed in the kitchen. When asking if he felt homesick when he left Pakistan, he said that what he missed the most was his parents' food. He lived in Hounslow, which has a huge South Asian and Pakistani community, but he didn't know how to cook any recipes at home. So Dad learned to cook everything on the phone to his mum, learning the recipes of his childhood through her voice from the other side of the world and using his memories of the food from when he lived there. For that reason, the cookbook element of the Rice on the Hob is not paired with images of food, but instead paired with handwritten memories of that dish from my dad's childhood. The book ends with an interview conversation between my dad and I. Often we focus on the positives, and I think it's really important for us in our relationship and for the work. As you can see from him dressed up in Post-it notes, humor is a key thing, but I think it's also important to address that despite this, Dad still lives with short-term memory loss, and living with a disability, especially a hidden one, is extremely difficult. Despite these images from all our projects looking like it's just Dad and I on the shoot, my friends and family are almost always behind the scenes in the image-making process. Whether that's my mum calling up with an idea or holding timers on a stick above his head, my sister helping with lighting, or friends helping with set design, it's become a wider collaboration with the people around me. The Rice on the Hob was shown a month ago at Have a Butcher's in Dalston for my debut show and book launch. Dad served pakoras and nargisi koftas, and we ended up with around, hard to say, but I think around 300 people coming by that evening. Every time I looked over to check that Dad was okay in this crowd of people, he was talking and laughing with strangers, offering them food, and completely comfortable talking about his illness. I think that's the biggest change over the last 5 years from then until now, is Dad's confidence to discuss something that he was usually quite embarrassed about and quite shy with. to the confident person he is, you can see in these images now. From helping with his daughter's university homework to signing his autograph in his own published book, this project with Dad is ongoing, and I'm not sure what shape it will take next, but I'm excited to keep making work for years to come. You can buy the Writers on the Hob from my website, but also it is going to be in the stall area during the break. £5 from each purchase is being donated to Muslim hands to rebuild houses that were destroyed in the 2022 Pakistani floods. Thank you for listening.